welcome to Order 42. I am Rob, and today I am very pleased, very honored to have the creator, writer, director of the new hit film on Netflix, Animal Crackers, Mr. Scott Christian Sava. Welcome to the show,
Hey, how
sir.
you doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm doing great. It's this has been I got to tell you. So, just real quick, I am a research person. I just love to research. I love to
Oh
find out
no.
about people. So I have in the last week, I have gone through so many of your interviews. So it's
Oh,
like I guess my biggest thing here is I want to try to make it interesting for you because man, you've been through the ringer with this. Um, but yeah, I mean, just in chat, Eagle Ford, that is my dad actually. So hi, Dad. He's and Vicky, yes, of course, and just he's my biggest supporter. I mean, he's
that's
awesome.
great.
But yeah, I mean, for anybody that isn't aware, I'm just gonna break down just a little bit of this. So for Animal Crackers, what it is, it's an animated film, came out or was finished back in what 2017, correct?
2016, yeah, end of 2016, early 2017.
Yeah, and through very many trials and tribulations, it's finally up on Netflix. Netflix came in, swept in to save the day, and it is now on Netflix. Now, before we really get into it, I want to just show this graphic, and this is something that I saw on Thursday as I was browsing, just to make sure, just to see where it was in the placement and all that stuff. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the top 10, but look here. So Netflix originals, you've got all these huge movies, and Animal Crackers is the first thing in the list. Before The Irishman, before The Old Guard, before Six Underground. When I saw that, look, like I said, I've done my research. I was so proud. I was so happy for you because
Thank you.
again, it's just amazing. And we'll get into what I think of the movie later. But let's just get into it. So first, Kevin Grievous is the one that basically got you to write the screenplay, right?
Yeah. Kevin wrote Underworld and I Frankenstein, and I had several studios option my books because I write a lot of kids' books for my boys, and they would option them and then nothing would happen. Option them, nothing would happen, and he was the one who just said, just write a screenplay. And I told myself, I know nothing about writing screenplays. The art school did not train me for writing screenplays. He goes, I went to Howard University and I was a microbiologist before I wrote Underworld. He goes, you don't need a degree in writing screenplays. He goes, just write it. And so he really urged me to just kind of go for it. And I did. And I liked it. And it was, it led to making a movie. So, a lot of credit goes to him for, just being a good friend and encouraging me.
I mean, that's one of those things where it's like, just like, just for you guys have been following the Game Chaser stuff. It's the same thing. I mean, there was just a little spur of, hey, you should do this. You should just go ahead and chase it. And it's one of those things that, again, I just love about this, the story of the creation of this. Now the graphic novel was of course written before and came out. And then like, how did the story change over time? Because it seems like there's very little, it doesn't really cross over. It's like, it's a very different thing. The movie is.
Yeah. The only thing that stayed from the book all the way to the finished movie was Owen as a hamster running around in circles going, holy moly, holy moly, holy moly. That's the only thing that truly stayed the same. And, it really, that was just when I was writing the screenplay, I was writing it for a live action. I was writing it for like an Alvin and the Chipmunks live action with CGI animals. And so it just traditionally you want a Jim Carrey or somebody to be playing the straight man and having the animals be the crazy things going on around them. And so that was why I wrote it was, Owen was an adult at that point, and Zoe was his wife instead of his sister. And Owen and Zoe in real life are my niece and nephew, and so in the comic they look like my niece and nephew. And so I just when I wrote the screenplay, I just kind of just wrote it for that, and so it was written for live action. And then when Harvey Weinstein came around and he said we should do this for animation, um, it started to get more changes and more changes. And I think the biggest change came when Emily Blunt came on the film, because that was really when we realized um, I was not writing the women characters the way that they should be written. And so I went back and I really took a page from my own life with my wife, and how our relationship was. And I rewrote that relationship to where um, it was very much more even. Even though it's Owen who inherits it, they both grew up in the circus. They both love the circus. She's got the future that she's giving up for the circus, and so she's the one who saves the circus. Along with Owen and along with Mackenzie, and it was a struggle during production, because traditionally that's not how you write a story. You write the hero's journey, and you need to focus on that one person. And I think that's been off-putting to a lot of traditional, people who just like traditional stories. They don't like a story that has so many characters arcs in it. I have Binkley's arc, I have Horatio and Bob and Talia, and all of these characters have their own little stories that are all going on, because as I see it, they're all family. They're all part of this big family, and they're all equally important. And it's my first film, and I know that it's not perfect, and I know that the story could have been a little tighter, but it was just one of those things where it took a family to make the movie, and I wanted the movie to reflect that.
And see, but that's the thing that to me, because you'd mentioned, and this is not like a slam on Hollywood and the way they do things. It's just the truth. They're a business. They have to put their money where they think they're going to get the best return. And sometimes that means making the thing that's just like the thing that came out last week, or the sequel, or whatever. What I love about this is that it's rich with character. And to me, I mean, I'm a character and story / world person. I'm not necessarily concerned with how great the effects are or how big the action sequences are. It's really about, because that's the thing that keeps you coming back, is to me, and again, this is my opinion, guys, but character and story.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm just going to tell you. Okay. I love this movie, guys. It's one of those things where when I first started, because I'm one of those people that a lot of my expectations get in the way sometimes. So it took me a bit to ease into the kind of the mode, I guess, that I had to be in to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And my friend Bucho is here from New Zealand. We did a podcast together on the Clone Wars, which we'll get into James Arnold Taylor in just a second. But one of the things that I had mentioned about that is that it took me a while to get myself into, okay, this is more for children. This is more for kids. I have to not like lower my expectations, but it's more of like, you just kind of have to ease into it. And it's, the movie casts a spell that I think around the time, and I don't know if it's a conscious thing or not, but when Owen turns into that hamster, I got to tell you, it was just like, okay, we're just going to have a good time. And I loved it. I loved how
the movie really kicks off at that point. It really,
and you've said that, but it's weird because I don't know how to explain it, but it's just one of those things where you kind of have to leave your cynicism and this world that we live in today. You kind of have to leave it at the door. And it's so wholesome, and like you said, it's the theme of family it's kind of timely and beautiful, and I mean, I know this was made years and years ago, but it's weird how it has almost like an urgent. I don't know. Does that make sense? I don't know if it makes
Yeah,
sense.
I've found that I don't write cynically, and all of my books, um, I try to instill a wonder. I try to look at it from my kids' eyes, and I everything I write, because I don't have any formal training, everything I write is how my heart feels.
Right.
This is what those characters would do. And I started off in video games after I graduated. Actually, while I was still in college, I got it. Started working at Sega of America, and then I went to Atari after I graduated, and I was a game designer. And back then in the early 90s, it wasn't like you could set up AI. Everything, it wasn't like that. But since I've stayed in games for so long, and I love video games, the way that I tend to write is um, it's kind of almost like chaos. Like I create the world, I create the rules of the world, and then I create the characters and their personalities, and then I put them in there, and I put a situation like animal crackers or pet robots or my grandparents are secret agents or magic carpet, whatever that catalyst is, and then I let those characters kind of play in my mind where they would go. And so as I'm writing it, I'm kind of discovering it. And if they go down a path that just doesn't feel right, or it feels cynical, or it feels too dark, or it's not right for that character, I pull them back and we go a different direction. And so I'm just kind of guiding that story. And Animal Crackers is really just, it's how my wife and I would have handled it. Uh, it really is that kind of relationship. And then John and Emily, they brought the joy, because when they came in, it was their first time they'd ever worked together, and they were just they were new parents, and they were just laughing and joyful, and they took something that only had one sentence and they turned it into 20, and they just were singing and they were joyful, and so it just built upon that foundation that I had already put there, and it became so much more. So I can't take credit for what the final output was, because there were so many people. There was the animators, there's music, there's the actors, there's everything that went into it, but there wasn't that Shrek type of cynicism that we didn't start off with that, and it wasn't really in there. And I think a lot of adults don't get that. They want that. And like I said, I think that's where there's just a group of people who are going to really like it, and a group of people who are going to just not like it. And that's okay. That's okay. I mean, I've been told you don't want to create art that everybody kind of likes. You want some to love it and some to hate it. You want it to draw some sort of reaction. And I guess I did that.
Well, and it's, like I said, this is definitely a children's film. I think
Yeah.
that's the main audience, but I think like you said, it's because of the world we live in. We're surrounded by people yelling at each other, and you're either right or you're wrong. There's no in between. There's no gray area. Everybody just reads headlines. They don't. I mean, there's so many issues in the world today, but this is almost a throwback. The movie is a throwback to a time that you can just tell a story and just enjoy yourself. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to sit there and there's this existential whatever. It's just, and I think that's what I loved about it, is that it was just it. Okay, Roger Ebert is my favorite. God rest his soul, but he's my favorite reviewer of all time, and it's because he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's not what a movie it's about, it's how it's about it. Meaning, he can go in there and go, this movie is not for me, but this is the rating on how well it was what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I love that. And it's something
and
that
they gave and Roger Ebert gave us a great review too, which I was really happy about.
Yeah, he was my guy, and it's kind of like my spirit animal, I guess. I don't that even makes sense, but you know what I mean. He was a mentor in a way, because I knew that there's, like, for example, I don't like Transformers, the movie. I hate it
Yeah.
because it was so
Yeah.
bad, but
Yeah.
it obviously hit a note. You know what I mean?
It did. Yeah.
So it's like, but so James Arnold Taylor and Tara Strong, they do
Yeah.
this preliminary animation. I assume to help finance the movie, right?
Yeah, yeah. They Jamie Thomason was not only our casting director, but he was also a good friend of mine, and we were the ones who originally were talking about making a we were originally saying a $2 million movie, you know. But he he was the one who went out and he talked to James and Tara, and they, along with James's daughter Lydia, who I think was 6 or 7 at the time. They put together this they did the recordings for us as a favor, and and that really helped us. And they were, James was Owen, and Tara was Zoe, and and they were going to remain those characters in the finished film too.
And that's one of those things that, it's one of those things where I kind of get it. I kind of get that you need the stars, but
Yeah.
man, those people, James Arnold Taylor and Tara Strong, if you guys
Yeah.
don't know who they are, I guarantee you've heard their voices. They're
Yeah.
in all
And
kinds
everything.
of things. They're so good. And
They're amazing.
and
And they're wonderful people.
yeah,
That was the thing, is they were, they put their time as professionals. They put their time to help a nobody in Franklin, Tennessee. They met with me when I came out to Los Angeles, and I remember Tara Strong telling me how she recorded the entire Hoodwinked movie as, I think it's Snow White or whoever the lead character is. And Harvey Weinstein came in after the entire movie was wrapped up and said, "Oh, no, 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 we've got to get some big stars," and replaced her with whoever's the gal who did the Princess Diaries,
Anne
um,
Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway. Thank you. And I remember how upset I was at that. And when and it was originally just a $10 million movie, our movie, and we were just looking to see if we can get 1 star, but we put feelers out. When Ian McKellen signed on, it was like all of our budget. We were like, oh my god, Ian McKellen. And but then the next day, Sylvester Stallone said yes, and so did Danny DeVito. So it's kind of like, you know, uh, you ask like 10 girls if they want to go to the prom, and then they all said yes. You don't know what to do, and it's a great episode of Happy Days or something like that. But the thing is we were just like, what are we going to do? So we had to go back and go get more money, and we did, rather than turn everybody down. But then once we passed that threshold where we got more money, and then John and Emily came on board, it was just like I didn't have the heart to go and do to Tara and James what had been done to them how many times. And that's when I went back and I created Buffalo Bob, and Talia, and I created this whole backstory that wasn't in the script, and I fought for it, against everybody, against Tony Bancroft, against Jamie, against Dean Lorey, and I said, and looking back at it 6 years later, I'm realizing it was an emotional response. It was something that I'm sure James and Tara would have no problem if they only had just the lines at the end where, and I don't know if the movie would have been as impactful, but if we started with Owen eating dog biscuits and the movie just took off from there, and then at the end, Old Blue and Talia start talking, and we're like, oh my God, would it have the same impact? I don't know. But that was basically their 3 or 4 lines that they would have had. And this is just, I guess, retrospect, just looking back and saying I did that um because I thought that it was the right thing to do. And in doing so, I don't know if the film was suffered from it, but I don't feel bad about it. I made an emotional call, and I did what I thought was right to the people who gave me a start, who helped me out, and I'm living with it. I'm okay with it. But they're wonderful people. Wonderful. I mean, James Arnold Taylor has been sending me every day. He sends me Bible verses, just to encourage me after all of the 3 years of lawsuits and bankruptcies and everything we went through. He'd check in on me. It's just such a wonderful guy.
And that's, I don't know. I guess the for me, story wise, I did feel like by the end of it, it was kind of like, okay, I can see how there's some maybe some pacing issues, but it
Yeah.
felt to me, and this was before I realized that the graphic novel was completely different. I figured it was almost like almost a direct adaptation because that's how it felt. It felt like a graphic
Yeah.
novel the way that it was written.
I write very bookish.
Yeah, but I mean, as a reader, I love that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. So that's the I don't know. I mean, I'm not the last person that, oh, well, Rob liked it, so I guess we're okay. But still, it was just, I don't know. And for me, it's like the story behind the movie sometimes is just as interesting. And
Yeah.
it made me appreciate them because I watched the movie first. You know, I was like, I want to get that in there and get my head around everything that I'm going to hear and read about this movie. I want to know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I had a sort of a preconceived notion, but then I guess my appreciation for the film grew as I watched your interviews and read interviews and read things about it. It was just like, okay, this movie's it's special. And
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's everything was a first for me.
yeah,
So, meeting the cast, working with the musicians, writing, directing, producing, everything was a first, going and listening to Bear McCreary, conduct the orchestra, all of that was a first, and everybody knew it. Um, I remember, I was in New York with Harvey Firestein, and he's just a pistol, he's just all sass, and I love him for it. But my job, along with Jamie Thomason, our casting director, is you know give notes, and so he's I think at one point I was giving him some direction. Okay, in this scene you're doing this now, whatever, and he just said, just in his typical thing, he's like, "I know, honey, I've done this, I've done a few movies before, right?" And I was just like, "Well, this is my first movie." And he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," And he was just, because they forget that every once in a while you're working with someone who this is their first time, and but everybody was really, really, they held my hand through the process, which was wonderful, because, and I think, and I don't know, my assumption from some of the directors I've met is, they would never let on that it was their first movie. They went to film school, they know everything they're doing, and they want to come in confident, they want to give their team confidence, and I understand that. But I was the opposite. I just said, John, I heard you directed a movie before. I think it was The Hollers at the time. What tips do you have for me? Can you help me? What about this? What about that? And they would sit down and he would talk to me about it. Stallone would talk to me about it. Yeah, everybody, Huey Lewis or Michael Bublé would tell me stories about their first album, and how they got screwed on it. Or Michael Bublé would tell me how he had to borrow money to buy his first suit for his first concert tour, and he's like, yeah. So they were all kind of walking in my shoes because they had been there before, and they were really helpful for it. And I think that was a wonderful experience, because I wasn't trying to be something that I wasn't. I was very openly, asking for help along the way for everything, and everybody really took that well, and no one said, "Oh, I can't believe I'm working with an amateur," or anything like that. There was no egos.
and that's I think one of the things that, again, referencing another interview that you did, but that Stallone, when he sat down with you, and the advice that he's, basically, life advice. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll let you tell the story, but I just love I love it. It's so amazing.
Yeah, he gave me the Rocky speech. My favorite Rocky speech was, when he's talking to his son, And he says, nothing is going to hit you harder than life, and it's just going to keep coming. It's going to keep coming. It's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you can get hit, and keep getting up and keep coming. And I asked him, I was like, did you get that off like a fortune cookie? Where'd you get it from? And he's like, no, I just kind of made it up. And he just told me stories about when he was sleeping in his car, and they offered him money to do Rocky, to write, for his script for Rocky. And it was just, it was good money, but he said he wanted to star in it. He knew he needed to star in it, and he fought. And they just fought. They wanted De Niro or James Caan or Robert Redford or someone to play it, and I think it was like a $3 or $4 million budget film. And when they finally relented, they gave him $870,000, I think it was, and they said, "Fine, you want to do it? You go and make that movie." And he knew that was his one shot, and that's how I felt too, and he knew that, and he just, he was 69 at the time, and he was just bouncing around. He was shadow boxing. He was just, telling me old stories, and puts his hand on your shoulder, and he knew all the right things to do. He really kind of encouraged me. Even the EPKs, the interviews afterwards, he kept referencing me, and just saying, how, this is Scott's time to shine. And, I was in his same spot, 40 years ago. Just, he was very, very fatherly in that way, which was everything you would have hoped for, in meeting, your idol, meeting Sylvester Stallone. It was everything.
Yeah, I don't know. My heart melted when you were telling that story. It's just like, I love that, because you kind of had a preconceived notion of what to expect from him.
Yeah, and I was warned.
Yeah.
People were like, he's going to come in with an entourage. He's not going to sign. He signed everything. I did a painting of from him and Clubber Lang from Rocky 3. He signed that. He signed posters for my friends. He took with everybody. He let me feel his muscles. He was, he was just whatever you want to. And he took a role like Bullet Man, and he
Right.
made it enjoyable. He didn't just go up and just say Bullet Man and then walk away. He was bouncing around. He was throwing punches. He was giving us sad Bullet Man, happy Bullet Man, mean Bullet Man. Yeah, every Bullet Man he could come. He was having fun, and he did it. He took every note, everything with joy, and just was a pleasure.
It's actually kind of interesting when you say that, because I almost feel like he's he's tapping into who you are as a person. Like, he saw you, like, all those warnings that you got may have been for somebody who's just in it for the dollar and just in it for the what. You had a passion project. He saw it, and his attitude changed. You know what I mean? I don't know. I could be wrong.
See that. No, I mean, look, it's attitude is infectious, and I see it work online. When I respond to people on YouTube, and when I respond to really negative reviews, and if I respond with kindness, I usually get back kindness, and I think people can see it. But yeah, I don't want to take anything away from all that Stallone did, for us, for the and me on that day. But yeah, I'm sure had I come across differently, the whole meeting would have been a little different too.
Yeah. I mean, but it's, I think it's a testament to who you are as a person. I mean, again, watching all those interviews, I kind of have a picture of who you are as a person, and what you value. And to me, that's really interesting. And it makes me, as, just a schmo over here doing a Twitch show, I hope that, this can help you, and I hope that I can help you promote this thing, because to me,
I appreciate it.
I don't know. There's just, I guess it's that genuine, I guess it's rare to meet someone that knows who they are and knows what they want to do and doesn't have any qualms about it, and is like, hey, I'm going to do my thing. And I find that so, I don't know. I feel like I'm just gushing about this whole thing, but it's how
I don't
feel.
mind.
It's how I feel. I mean, I guess it's because, I've grown my whole life. I've been, I was known for my cynicism on my old podcasts. You know what I mean? It was kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I'm a different person now, and I see things differently now. And when I see somebody who's the genuine person, you know what I mean? It's not, I don't know. I'm attracted to that, I guess. You know what I mean?
No, I get it. And just so that way people don't think that this comes naturally. It takes work to be kind. It takes work to be humble. It takes work to be like this. I mean, I was really influenced by Mr. Rogers, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen that the documentary. He just lived this incredible life where he and I could never be like that. I could never be like that kind of person, but I think he did that naturally. I think he was naturally like that. Um, I am cynical by nature. I am, I do get angry. I get upset when I read a bad review. But I want to be a better person. I want to be, I want to be better. And so in doing so, I'm working at it. So I don't want people to think that, well, that's just not me. That's not how I am. It's not, I don't think it's how anybody is. I think you have to make an effort to do that. You have to say, what kind of person do I want to be to other people? Well, how do I want people to see me? How do I want, people to know me? And so I feel like in a lot of ways over the last decade or so, I think the last 17 years, because when we had kids, I wanted to be the kind of father, and again, no knock on my dad, I'm just saying, but I wanted to be the kind of father that I would want. And so I made an effort to be patient. I made an effort to be calm. I made an effort to always laugh, and to, even when you're exhausted, if your kid comes in to show you something, show them how, excited you are, and always try to make them laugh. And I learned all the dad jokes, I did everything. And I think that is, you can create the person that you want to be. I don't think, I think people can change. And so I just wanted to point that out in case anybody thought that naturally I am this person. When I was in my 20s, I was boisterous and I was a pain in the ass. I was like, and I would get angry, and when I had kids, when we had our twins, I knew I needed to be a better man. And so I've been working at it.
I don't know. Well, first of all, that was rather well said, but it's like, it's not about being perfect. It's about the pursuit of perfection, right? I mean, I think if anybody goes through their life going, yep, that day went exactly the way it should have been, and I did exactly the right thing every day, then you've got issues. You need to get some help, because you're a sociopath. Because it's just like, that's not the way the world works. We can all do better. We can all be better. And I don't know. I love that stuff. I mean, oh gosh, we could go on a tangent there, but now
I hope I'm a better person when I'm 100 than I am when I'm 50 here.
Right.
So I don't want to be the same person. I want to keep improving.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, not to go too far into this, because, the listeners that I do have heard a lot about my medical issues, but one of the things that, I going through recovery, going through, all the stuff that I had to do to get to where I am now, it was get better every day.
Yeah.
I need to be better today than I was yesterday. And it's, if you can take those simple little things and apply it logically to your life, it's like, you feel better. You're like, wow, look at how far I've come in just a week, that kind of stuff. I don't know. I just love that stuff. But I do want to get into the music, because you touched on it. Oh my God, Bear McCreary. Um, you, I knew his work. I'm sort of, I wouldn't say I'm as into scores as say, your son who's very into him. I do love him though, and
Yeah.
I knew Bear McCreary. I'd heard his name before, but your little interview with him, your little 20 something minute talk with him, I was just like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
I love this guy. I'm a fan now. He is, he just seems like such a good guy. And
He is.
I love the fact that he basically changed his whole, well, number one, gosh, there's so much. The way that he got the job.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. So I was talking to a lot, I not talking to, but I was sent a lot of samples from composers. Um, and these were composers who had made movies before, animated movies before, and I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Yeah, well, okay, this sounds good, I guess. This one sounds good, I guess. And I don't know anything about scores. I knew nothing about it. And one of my trips, I got to meet Mark Mothersbaugh, who was the lead singer of Devo, and he's been doing tons of animated movies. And he was just a sweetheart of a guy. And we talked about um, the kind of Bugs Bunny type of music that I was thinking of and everything. And but it was very expensive. And so we were going, okay, can we afford this? Let's look at this. Let's look at that, or whatever. And then along comes this video. Now everybody sent me music. Bear McCreary sent me video, and it was the storyboard, the animatic that we had sent with the composition, but it was also with the 120 piece orchestra that he recorded at Warner Brothers, and it was amazing. It was like a documentary. It was just this musical. Here's this guy who's like, and it had kazoos and it had accordions and it just had everything that no one everything else was sounded like everything else. But Bear was like, I'm different. Here's a video, here's this, here's that, and here's kazoos. And he was just like, and I was like, okay, that's the same kind of thinking that I have, which is I'm not doing this traditionally. And so we just boom, we became instant friends. And we also had a connection too, because my good friend David Wise had introduced us. So there was just it was fate. It was just fate. And he is, I mean, you saw the interviews. He is like that 100%. He is just all during the 3 years that, we were going through all the crap. Um, he would call me up to cheer me up, and I would call him Tigger because he's just so bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. And he's just like, just encouraging, encouraging, encouraging. It's all going to be great. And you made a great movie and we had a lot of fun. And poor guy, he had done a second movie called The Professor and the Madman with Mel Gibson and, oh God, Jeff Spicoli.
oh, Sean Penn.
Sean Penn, thank you. Sorry if that was the only name I could come to mind.
It's
But
okay.
Sean Penn and yeah, and he had done, and that movie got held up too. And it was this gorgeous score that he did. And so poor guy, he was looking at two movies that he really loved the score that were just sitting there as well. And, not that he wasn't busy, he was doing, Godzilla and everything else, but he was just so positive. He was just so wonderful, and we've just become best of friends. I just love him.
Yeah, I guess I mean, that was an amazing thing that he did, right there. But
Yeah,
then when he heard that your son was into scores
yeah,
and he wanted to be there for the recording.
yeah. My son couldn't make it because it was in spring, and this was 3 years ago. It was 2017, and my son was a freshman in high school, and he just he couldn't go out, and so Bear packed the entire thing up, and he came out to Nashville, and he recorded in Nashville so my son could come after school and listen and watch him conduct. I mean, I don't know anybody who would do something like that. Just the expense, because he didn't ask for any more money. It was out of pocket, and he paid for everybody to go out, and he did all of that out of pocket, and it was recorded in a small church, so they could only record the strings on one day and the brass and the woodwinds on another day. And my son just sat there every day after school. He did his homework and he just watched in awe. And Bear would come out and he would check on him and all of us, and what do you think, and this and that or whatever. And then we go out to dinner, and my son was like, do you know this composer? And he's like, yeah, I think I met him once. Do you know this composer? Do you know this guy who did Lord of the Rings? Do you know this guy who did, and Bear just sat next to my son, and they talked for like 2 hours, and he just answered all of his questions. And every day, and I have them right here. I mean, every time he'd come out with a new album, so you can see, to Brennan and Logan, he would just send all of them to us anytime he would come out. And I have, I don't know, 20 or 30 of these. And he would send like little notes. I don't know if this is, yeah, I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah. New music turned it out to 11.
He would just send, and he's always just, and Bear's music since 2015, I think, is when we met Bear. Bear's music since 2015 has been the soundtrack to my son's life for the last 5 years. I mean, my son walks around with headphones and he just listens to his music. He listens to other compositions, but I would say about at least 50% of the music he's listening to is Bear's. And he just loves it. And whenever Bear came out for the eclipse with his family, and we all hung out together, and Logan's right there by his side, talking to him, asking him whatever. And my son has no interest whatsoever in music as far as like a profession, but he just loves his work, and he loves just soundtracks. And so it was just an amazing, from a father's point of view, it was just an amazing experience. And I just loved it.
Yeah, I love that. It's so great. And by the way, Bucho said that Bear McCreary is in my top 5 Bears. But I also want to just call out Flintlock Red. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. But yeah, and then, I mean, not only is the score fantastic and quirky and all of those things that you want in a movie about a circus, you've also got some amazing, I mean, you mentioned Michael Bublé, but you've got Toad the Wet Sprocket and Howard Jones and Huey Lewis. I mean, it's just like how did you, I mean, I guess, is that all because of connections that you had?
No, I didn't have any connections. I don't have any connections to anybody, Bear McCreary was through a friend, but we met Andy Ross, who had just finished the movie Whiplash, and he was our music supervisor, and he'd never done an animated film. So this was really interesting to him. And poor guy, he says, what kind of music do you like? And I listed off Huey Lewis and Howard Jones and Def Leppard and Seal, and and he's like, okay, because he was thinking I was going to say like Katy Perry or something. I don't
Right.
know. And within, he's like, okay, this is the music you like. Within a week, I was on the phone with Huey Lewis, and I grew up in the Bay Area, so Huey was huge in the Bay Area, and it was I mean, oh my God, I'm on the phone with Huey, and he's just like, hey, I read the script. I mean, like, he sent Huey the script. Huey read the script and loved it and wanted to give us a song. And so it was just like, all there was left was just me gushing. That was, that was all my job was at that point. And he was like, yeah, I'm coming out next month. We're on tour. This was before he got Meniere's disease. And he's like, we're on tour. I'm coming out next month. Let's get together. My wife and I, we were there, we got to sit and have lunch with him, and he was just everything you would think he would. Like, there was no bad interactions. Everybody was just wonderful. And he would call me up from time to time and just, joke with me. and talk to me about the movie. And same thing with Howard Jones. Howard Jones and his wife Jan came over. They would sit here in the Hobbit hole and they would watch the movie with us, and took us backstage and said, here's a song I'm working on for you. And we're in his bus backstage while he's performing the song that he's writing while he's touring, Glenn from Toad the Wet Sprocket, he came over to the house and we had some tea, and he sat, right here and sang me the song, one of those days. And so I'm just having these really weird experiences, hanging out with Michael Bublé, and just it was the musicians really connected with me, and I really connected with them because they're artists.
Mhm.
Not to take away from the art of acting, but as musicians, they start with a blank piece of paper, a blank canvas, and they create something from nothing. And I just they understood that fear of when you're looking at a blank canvas, you don't know if it's going to be something you're proud of or something you're going to want to throw away. You just don't know. And as I was making a movie, that was my canvas, and I didn't know what the final film was going to be. I didn't know if anybody was going to like it. I didn't know if I was going to like it. And there's just that kinship you feel with other artists, whether it be a writer or a musician or a painter, that they just got. And I still remember Michael Bublé would call me from Germany or wherever he was touring and whatnot. His new album had just come out, and he was just terrified. He was just calling me just to talk to another artist, saying, I don't know if anybody's going to like my work. I don't know if anybody, I tried some different stuff this time, and I don't know if they're going to like it. And I was just like, you're Michael Bublé. It's just going to be great, but from the outside looking in, you're like, it's fine. I listened to the album. It's great. But he just had all of the same fears and phobias that I had. And so we connected on that. And I really, really, I enjoyed those relationships, and I still do to this day. I really, really, loved, whether it be Bear or Howard or Huey or Toad or Michael. It's just they've I like to call them friends. I wish I could say that about Stallone or Krasinski or Blunt or DeVito or whatever, but they came in, they did their job, and then they were gone. But the musicians, they really cared about me, and they really cared about And again, not to say anything about the Patrick Warburton, Tara Strong, and James Arnold Taylor, who really did keep following up, and they've remained friends with me as well. But since we were talking about musicians, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no, and but it's so it's one of those things that, especially doing this show, is that I had a tendency to put everybody up on a pedestal, and be very hyperbolic about, you're heroes and all this stuff. To me, you're heroes, you know what I mean? Because it's like you make stuff that I love, and it's important to me. It's just like George Lucas will always be one of my heroes, because he was, But at the same time, the idea that you've made something that's so successful, and yet you still have that, oh, gosh, I hope people like it. You know what I mean? You're not. I guess I always just felt like everybody. I don't know. It's a weird thing. I'm not young. I'm not stupid. But for some reason, I still had that disconnect where I almost felt like everybody was. Does that make any sense? Like they made something and they go, yes, everyone's gonna like it, and I'm gonna be. It's like when somebody would, come out, and some actor or actress or musician or someone would talk about depression and be like, well, what do you have to be depressed about? You have $50 million. And it's like, but they're people. So it's they're
people. And, it's, I always say, you can get 100 positive reviews and one negative, and all you're going to remember is the negative review. And we're human. We're fragile. Our egos, and look, there are people who truly just have egos, and they just, they can give a crap. But for the rest of us, we're just trying to make it through. And I mean, I paint and I paint and I paint and I paint, and I look at people who, I mean, I've got hundreds of paintings that I do, and they just go in a drawer. They just go in a drawer, and that's it. And I can't sell them, I can't give them away, but I like doing it. And my family and my friends, they go, "Oh my god, I love it!" And they'll buy prints, and they'll support me. But I look at other people's work, and I go, "Why is this popular? Why do they have 150,000 followers and I have 300 followers? Why? What am I doing wrong? I think my work is good, but why? Why is that?" And I don't know. It's just it. At some point, you just have to be content with what you're doing. And one of the things I've been realizing since the pandemic, since quarantine, is how important the grocery stores are, and how they service this local area of people, and how we need that. And I've been trying to think of a way that, as an artist, how can I service, maybe it's not an area, but if I can service 500 people, if 500 people like my work, or if 1,000 people like my work, is that enough? Is it, because we're living in a social media world where everybody looks at their numbers, and if you have a certain amount, you're considered an influencer. And do I need 100,000? Do I need 1 million followers? Do they all, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? And I'm not after fame. I don't want to be famous. I just want to be able to do my art and tell my stories, and make enough to feed my family, make enough to put my kids through college and hopefully retire. That's my job. And so I'm wondering if there is a way to not need to be validated by the entire world, and just find a group of followers, or a group of, I don't want to say followers, it sounds like a cult, but a
No, I
group
know what you
of
mean.
of patrons, who will buy your wares. And if that's, if that's the case, that I think that is a good way to teach people, is you don't have to be the biggest thing. You don't have to be, because as artists, we're constantly jealous of that person or that person or that person. And I there's more than, I mean, my art touches some people, and other people's art touches a lot of people, and that's good for them. That's fantastic. And I just, as long as I'm making some people happy, I should be content with that. And so that's the road I'm traveling right now. That's what I'm trying to learn.
Well, as I said, in a world full of cynicism and all of that stuff, I mean, I think we could use a little positivity, and a little bit of,
Yeah.
what's really important here. And that's, like I said, I just love that. Real quick, I want to just call out Albert in chat. Thank you, Albert, for being here. He had said that he loves him some Bear. And he also said that Scott worked at Sega, and that got him very invested in this. So great job.
Oh, thanks. Did Albert see the Huey Lewis music video my son and I did? That was inspired by my time at Sega. We did a 16-bit music video.
I'm not sure, but Albert, right above your in the event through, thanks Nightbot. I've got a link to Scott's Twitter and your Animal Crackers movie YouTube channel there, so you can go look at that there. Right, it's on the YouTube channel.
I think it's in the playlist, because it's hosted by Sony. But if you go to the playlist, you go to music videos, you'll see it. But we did a 16-bit Huey Lewis music video, and Huey liked it enough to use it as his official music video, which was really kind of cool.
And I mean, just, it's weird how all of those artists, they have, let's say, not so much Michael Bublé, he's huge, but like for me, Huey Lewis, Howard Jones, Toad the Wet Sprocket, they enjoyed some success yesteryear, I'll just say, and then they've kind of faded from the spotlight, but they're still making amazing music. They've been making amazing music. I've been a fan of Toad the Wet Sprocket since the first single that came out. And of course, Howard Jones, one of my old podcast buddies, is huge fan of Howard Jones. In fact, I met Howard Jones at a concert in Dallas.
Did
Yeah,
you? He is, I
so
mean, you
down to
saw the
earth.
interview, right? Did you get a chance to see my talk with him?
Yes.
He's just he's who I'm aspiring to be. I mean, he is just so, I mean, I remember him telling me that he's like, if you go back and you listen to my music, it's things will only get better. What is love? He goes, it's positive, it's positive,
Yes.
it's positive. And this is in the 80s and there was so much cynicism. And he's just like, I wanted to be a positive voice. And he was. And I love that about him. And he is just such a genuinely charming and sweet man. And he's who I aspire to be. He embodies all of that.
He says, Bucho just said checking out some of Scott's art on his Twitter. Dude got skills. Uh, that's the one
Thanks.
thing, and I know that I'm not exactly sure about all of the different graphic novels that you've done, and the different, I guess, IPs. I don't know what you call them, properties. I don't know what you,
Yeah.
because I mean I don't know what you have planned in the future. But did you do any of that art, or is it like story and then some artist comes in?
The only one I did the art for was, and even then it was collaborative, was the Dreamland Chronicles, which was my
Yes.
biggest series, and that was CGI. And I did the art for Spider-Man when I did the CGI one. But again, just like a movie, I had to still hire a character designer and a modeler and a rigger and background designer and modeler, and basically was given all the toys, and then I told the story. I lit them, posed them, did everything, everything I needed to do, and I, did everything else. But I still needed help with those. But I've only done a couple painted issues, or I did a couple like Deep Space Nine issues. I did one Marvel, like one page, because I was filling in for somebody, painted, and then a bunch of painted covers like Star Trek and Mortal Kombat and whatnot. But never like a whole graphic novel series. That was what I was trying to do when I was, when we were pitching for Marvel. But the CGI was just so out there and so different that's what sold it, and that's what people wanted.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's very impressive. Please check those out. I mean, they're I think
Thanks.
it's awesome stuff. I mean, and it's like anybody that's that creative in so many different medium, you know, I think that's awesome. It says,
I feel like I'm a jack of all trades, master of none.
but that's
Like I, I do. I've done video games. I've done comic books. I've written. I've painted. I've animated, and I feel like I've really haven't found anything that sets me apart or sets me apart. But I do love all of it. I've even written a romantic comedy and a live action sci-fi series that I'm hoping to sell. But for me, it's just, I want to try that. Now I want to try that. And I want to try that.
right.
But I think in doing so, I, not that I'm aiming for perfection, but in doing so, I'm, I don't think I'm competing, at the level that the people who really, really paint every day, all day long, and are really good at it.
Yeah, and Bucho is just he's been around a long time, big supporter of mine. He says he loves that painting of Gilbert capturing his smile because he's listened to a bunch of Gilbert's podcasts, and for someone with such an abrasive voice and edgy comedy sensibility, he seems like a pretty sweet guy.
He really was. Gilbert was very shy and meek and quiet, which threw me off. He was, I thought I was going to be meeting Yago,
What is this?
and
Yeah.
yeah. He's just not like that in real life. He's just a very quiet, normal guy. And then he gets in the booth and he kind of just, like, he doesn't talk like that. He gets in the booth, and that's a personality that he kind of comes out with. He's got kids, and he's very sweet with his kids, and I love that. I love that. I mean, I couldn't imagine him being like that all day long. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that would be insane.
Yeah, it's like, did you think that Sam Kinison would just go around just
Yeah.
yelling all the time? Oh, yeah, no. But now I do want to ask a little bit. I know that it's it's a subject of, well, some pain, but I do kind of want to see, kind of dig into this whole distributor issue and the reason that the movie sat for so long.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess what it is as someone who's, as I'd mentioned before, we're in post production, looking for maybe possible some distribution. It's a little bit scary, because I feel like since we're the little guy, you were the little guy, you got pushed around a lot.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, can you just break that down just a little bit?
Yeah. Um, so when we first got our money, we went to some studios and hey, we got some money. We're going to make a movie. Would you want to partner with us? And no, you're nobody. We don't want you. Okay. Then we got our cast and it was like, wow, nice cast. Okay, now we're interested, but we have no idea if you can even finish this film. So we'll just keep an eye on you. Okay, so 2 years later, we finished the film and no one knew what to do with us. The big studios were saying, well, you got this huge cast, this movie looks great. They wouldn't say it to our face, but essentially what I think happened is we were competing with them. So if you're going to Sony, our little $19 million budget film was competing with their $150 million film. And they didn't want it. And there was the threat of if they did buy it, they were just going to shelve it. So it didn't compete. And we didn't want that. So we went to the smaller studios. And the smaller studios were like, oh my God, no one sells animated movies like this. We don't get anything like this. So we were kind of just this unicorn. And so we were getting these ridiculous offers, like $10 million advance and, just red carpet this and that or whatever it was, just wonderful deals. Like, you're going to be rich, son. We want a 3-picture deal and everything else. And so we took one of them, and within 3 months of signing a deal, the company went bankrupt. And like, they had no ability whatsoever to do any of the stuff that they promised that they were going to do. They were hoping that the acquisition of our movie would have got them a loan to save them, and it didn't. And so we had to then buy our movie back from these people who never gave us a dime, which is essentially just extortion, to get our film back. And so we did. Signed on with the next company. 6 months later, they went bankrupt. And we signed on with the third company. And this guy just tried for 14 months. He could not raise the money. Because when you're going theatrical, you need to raise 30, $40 million, which is double the budget of our film. And that was going to go into marketing of the film. And they couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. So that was, it was hard because I'm going to these people saying, you promised me that, you had the cash and you were going to write a check in the contract. You're going to write us a check within 10 days. And you knew you didn't have it. How do you live with yourself? How do you live with yourself? And it happened 3 times. And, by the third time, I didn't want to sign the deal. It was my investors who really forced me to do it because they wanted to get their money back. And I said, you guys didn't you see what happened the last 2 times, So that was that. It was we didn't, along with everything else, and we didn't fit a mold. We weren't a low budget direct DVD. We weren't a big budget $150 million film. We were something in between, and we couldn't find a home. And during those 3 years, Netflix became this kind of force for animation, and it all kind of worked out. I mean, of course, I wanted to be on my 3rd movie right now.
Yeah.
I wanted to be working on Ed's Terrestrials. I wanted to have pet robots in the bag and in the can, and just be working on more movies. But instead, 3 years with no paycheck, 3 years of struggling and worrying, and it ages you. I don't look it, but I'm 26 years old. I mean, look at me, but no, but it's tough. It was really, really tough. And so, people ask me, why are you not thrilled? Why are you not bouncing off the walls? Your movie's, the number one animated movie in the world on Netflix. And I can't go from down here to up there so quickly. I'm not
You're
like
not
that.
that
And
bipolar.
yeah, I'm not bipolar. So
It's
I just,
is it
you
starting
know,
to ease up though? Is it starting to be like, okay? I mean, does it feel
no,
that? No.
because honestly, I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford insurance for my son. I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford college. I don't know. We didn't make any money on this film. I mean, when I say we didn't make any money, we didn't make the money we were owed. So, we were living off of my wife got $45,000 a year and we were living off of that. And then when that dried up for 3 years, when we signed on with Netflix, we got back pay for that $45,000 a year. And so, okay, well, and we could live on that for another year and we're okay. But it's tough. It's tough when you're like, I just made a movie with Emily Blunt and Sylvester Stallone and John Krasinski, and I'm borrowing money from family again. You know, it is what it is. I mean, thank God we live in Franklin, Tennessee, and our house payments are $1,700 a month.
Right.
But my boys are 17 and they're going to college next year. At least they want to. And yeah, they're applying for scholarships and they're applying for loans and whatever. But I I busted my ass. I worked for 6 years essentially to get this movie made, and I'm owed money. And I would have liked to have gotten paid, but that's why I can't be excited because you know other people took the money that was owed to me, and none of this is Netflix's fault. This is just
Right.
the personal. I mean, everybody can read about all of this, so everybody can know it. So I'm not saying anything that's out of school, but um, yeah, I was owed money and I didn't get paid, and I just need to move on. But it's hard to do it cheerfully.
Sure.
I'm thankful for how well the movie's doing, and I'm hopeful that it means I can do this again, and I'll be the first person to get paid this time.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna put my money on the back end. I'm just gonna pay myself something enough to where I know I can pay for my kids' college, and then if I can get a second one, then I know we could put some money away for retirement. But that's my job is I've got to somehow find another job, and so I'm really kind of hoping that the movie does well enough to where I get a phone call from Netflix or somebody else. But until then, I'm just trying to be realistic that this might be I might be a one hit wonder, might be it, and I need to be okay with that. I don't want to live the rest of my life going what should have happened, what could have happened, and blame other people. I want to be thankful. I had a really great experience, and how many people get to say they made a movie? So if I'm working at Home Depot next year, I want to be okay with it. And so that's why I'm not bouncing off the walls excited. I'm grateful, but I'm not excited.
Well, I mean, again, it's one of those things where after hearing this story, again, watching the movie, liking it, and then listening to your story, and then looking back at the movie and going, oh my gosh, it's a product of this joy you're trying to bring to the world. And then these people come through. And it's such a weird, like a dynamic here because you had so much fun making it. And then
Mhm.
this should have been the easy part because you're
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
They don't even have to, you know what I mean? But then it breaks my heart to hear it. And
We had such fun making it for from 2014 to 2017, and then from 2017 to 2020 was just hell. And in a lot of ways, it stripped away the joy. It stripped away all of that. It's like having a wonderful vacation and then you get sick on the last day, and it, it's just it ruins it, and I'm trying not to let it. And so for the month before the film came out, that's why I started doing those tales from the Hobbit hole. I started interviewing, and I still got a bunch that I haven't even finished editing yet. I got Dean Laurie, I've got James Arnold Taylor and his daughter Lydia. I even got Drew Struzan, the famous illustrator who did all the movie posters. I'm still going to interview another 10 more of my team to talk about the joy of making the movie. And that's what I wanted to do in those, is just to talk about the good times, not to talk about all the bad stuff. And it was really, really cathartic for me to just chat with Huey Lewis or chat with Howard Jones or Tony Bancroft or Bear McCreary and just really reminisce about all the fun things we did. And I think that's because I don't like to look back. I really don't. I'm always looking forward to the next thing, but I wanted to at least take some time to appreciate the experience that I had because those 3 years really sullied it for me. I really wanted to just try to appreciate it. And I think I did.
Well, and I mean, again, I mean, I can't speak for you, but I feel like it's one of those things where, or not even speak for you. I don't know why I said that. Um, but it's more like now I'm so interested to see what you decide to do next, whatever it is. And it's like, what's great about doing this show is I get to meet these people that, for whatever reason, don't get the spotlight. And
Yeah.
my whole thing, my whole life has been, I love the sound designers. I love the sound effects guys. I love the special effects guys. I mean, you've heard of Rick Baker and, some of the big guys, but the guys that are, working the smoke machine, they've got stories.
Yeah.
And they've got
Yeah.
amazing stories. And it's like, why are we not hearing these stories? So, I mean, for me, it's like, even though, this may not be your, the golden ticket, hopefully it's one of those things. What it's done for me is it's made me really interested in what you do next and what in your career, and looking back at what you've done and be like, this guy's awesome. I mean, let's support this guy. So I hope that, if at the very least, if you've got Netflix, put Animal Crackers in your queue.
Yeah.
Do it now. Well, no, maybe not now.
Go to Rotten Tomatoes and give us 5 stars.
Oh yeah.
We can use that too.
Well, and that's the weird thing, man. Rotten Tomatoes. I can't get behind it because it is. I mean, again, if it helps you, great. But for me, it's like, it's one of those things where it's almost that same thing that I was talking about, where it's like nobody reads the story; they just read the headlines.
Yeah.
It
is what it is. I just, the thing is I've been noticing articles keep referencing the reviews. They've been referencing he's got a 64% on Rotten Tomatoes. He's got and so I unfortunately that's I think what the studios are going to look at, and if I'm ever to do one again. So as much as I love hearing from people, if they're also either going to Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb or Google or wherever is going to say rate this film, and it helps.
Right.
As crazy as it sounds, if a lot of people are liking it, hopefully I get a second shot at it. And but what do I know? I mean, Kissing Booth 2 had like a 23% Rotten Tomatoes, and it already got picked up for a third one. So I don't understand, and I probably never will. I don't want to leave anything to chance. So anything that I can do, I'm going to mention.
And that's one of the things that I find it's so different and refreshing about what you're doing. You're doing these interviews and these, talk shows, podcasts. It's almost like a word of mouth guerrilla marketing. You know what I mean?
I feel like I'm campaigning.
Yeah.
I'm going, hi, my name is Scott. I made a movie. Let's talk, but, and it's really out of my wheelhouse because I'm an introvert, so for me to just talk to random people, perfect strangers is very difficult for me. But, I like I said, I don't think if I just stayed silent and just let the movie come out, I don't think it would have hit the top 10. I just don't think it would have stayed in the top 10. And I don't think, I think the reviews would have been bad, and those reviews would have perpetuated. And I think I needed to go out of my comfort zone and talk to everybody in the world. Everybody who's going to mention the words Animal Crackers in a sentence, I'm going to have to talk to them. And so it is definitely something that I feel uncomfortable doing, but it's something that I felt that the film needed, and all of the work that we put into it needed. and it was a sacrifice that I needed to make. And but people like yourself make it really easy to just talk, and I appreciate that. I mean, I appreciate the research you did. I appreciate um, everything. You went and you watched the movie, and so I that doesn't happen every time. So I do
Well,
appreciate
it's
that.
to me, it's for me, it's like if I don't do that work, then I'm doing you a disservice. And if I'm doing you a disservice, then I'm doing these people a disservice. Because for
Yeah,
me, it's like this show is what I want, what I would want to watch. If I'm going to watch a show about something, I want the person who's asking the questions to actually know what he's talking about. Not just,
yeah, yeah.
it's not enough
It
to be
helps.
right. The party with the most money wins. Isn't that
Yeah.
right, sir? I mean, you know what I mean? It's it's like there were things that you said that it's almost like a weird warning because we're going through this stuff on our movie right now. And
Yeah.
man, your story scared me. And but
I'm
no,
sorry.
it's so valuable. I mean, so it's like, I felt like the least that I could do is help to shine a light on your movie, which is delightful. It doesn't deserve the hate and you know what I mean? It's like, come on. We were all 8, 9 years old once. And I guarantee
Yeah.
you 8, 9 year old me would be loving this and wanting to watch it on repeat. Now,
Yeah.
for me today, it's still a joy to watch. And that is something that I think is really special. You'd mentioned, and I mean, again, I try not to be too negative, but come on. The Emoji Movie, did it deserve any of the. No, it didn't.
No. Yeah.
This actually deserves it. That's a corporate, well, let's see how much money we can, take from parents. You know, this felt like it came from a good place and it's trying to do a good thing. I love that. It's trying to be positive.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
um, guys, do we have any more questions? I just have a couple more. And because I really want to be considerate of your time. You've done a lot. So it's like I don't want to keep you too long. But I mean, the interesting thing too is you toyed with possibly putting it on YouTube and just saying, let's just do it. You were just ready to move on at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was my nuclear option. That was, if the distributor didn't give us back the film, well, I was just going to just put it up on YouTube, and then it was worthless to everybody. But it's like, I made this painting, and I didn't get paid for it, so I'm going to destroy it, that kind of thing. But it was never something I actually did, obviously. But you go through those emotions, and you want to. Uh, I hate bullies.
Yes.
I hate bullies, and people with money bully people without money. That's just the long and the short of it. And I will be the person who will cut off my nose to spite my face. I will, um, you know, uh, mentally at least, if I will, grab you, and we'll both go over the cliff together, if that's what it takes. So, I was in that position. I mean, it was 3 years of bullying and bullying and bullying and threats, and people threatening to take my house away, people threatening my kids, people threatening, everything. And, I don't think I said anything I regret. And I definitely didn't do anything I regret, but I was very open with, um, you're leaving me no choice but to, put it up on YouTube. You're telling me you're going to take my film away. You're going to keep all the money, and there's nothing I could do about it. Well, there is something I could do about it. I can make sure that you don't see the money either. And that was the conversation. And I hate having those. I mean, who wants to have those kind of
Right.
conversations? But this was, there was, like I said, it was really, I got sued in federal court. I was fighting against Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby's lawyer with against my, with myself. I fought, the he calls himself the pit bull of Hollywood. I fought him by myself. I mean, thank God I've seen every episode of Law and Order. I did pretty good, but I, I had to do it, and I held my own. But it's just, yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun, and it's not. When you get into situations like that, that's not who you want to be. You don't want to threaten other people. That's not how I want to be remembered. Is by, you know, a lawsuit,
Right.
and the arguments you have to say to defend yourself and whatnot in a lawsuit. I'd rather be remembered for joy that I bring to people's lives if I can.
And
So,
that's, it's like I've always had this theory, which again was conceived back in my very cynical days, but it was like there's people who do the right thing because they're being watched. There's people who just don't care and they'll do whatever they want. There's very few people that do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. There's that like I made a mistake. I'm going to own up to it. Even if I could hide it and blame it on someone else or whatever, I'm going to own up to it because they're going to respect that. That's always been my thing is I don't want to be the guy that has to continue to look over his shoulder. I'm just going to do it right so that I don't have to be questioned about it. So when I hear your story, it's like, here's a guy that's, just trying to do good in the world a little bit, and if you can make a little money to support your family, that's good enough. And I'm like, okay, this should be championed, guys. Let's all,
unfortunately, doing the right thing does not pay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, doing the right thing doesn't mean that things are going to work out. The way that the world works is the person with the most money wins. I learned that dealing with the lawsuit was when the court, when the people at the judge's chambers tell you it doesn't matter who's right or wrong, it matters who has the most money. And that's it, so they can outlast you. That's all a lawsuit really is. They don't need to go to court. They need you to run out of money. And when you run out of money,
they win.
Yeah. There you go.
Well,
so
go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So just being right or doing the right thing, unfortunately, isn't enough, and that does in turn make you cynical, and so but what's the alternative? I don't want to be like those people, and I'm not putting my head in the sand. I know that just doing the right thing, and I will fight. I'll fight for my family, and I'll fight, and I did. And but like I said, I just don't want to be remembered for the fights.
Right.
That's not who I want to be. And so I will defend myself. I will fight. But like I said, my place is here in the Hobbit hole, creating kid stuff.
Which
that's
I know I didn't bring it up, but guys, come on, that's awesome, right? I love it, and it's one of the things that I'm so used to seeing it now because I've seen so many of your interviews. But I just love it. I love the you basically had some issue that you had to take care of. They were remodeling, and he's like, well, you know what? You're a homebody anyway. Here, I'm going to give you a Hobbit hole. I love it. I just love that story.
Yeah.
But a couple of questions here. The Albert asked, did you ever work on any of the Sonic the Hedgehog video games?
No, I was pre that. I started at Sega in 1989, and the game that I did was called Kid Chameleon, and as a kid who'd put on different helmets, and then he'd become that, which is kind of funny because it sounds very similar to Animal Crackers, So he'd put on a samurai helmet, and then he's a samurai. He'd put on, football helmet, he's a football player, whatever it was. And so that was my.
But it's a lot like you too. You wore a lot of hats on that movie. On this movie too.
Yeah.
I mean, you did a lot of stuff.
It's funny how that stuff subconsciously influences you over the years.
Yeah.
That was 40 years ago.
Yeah. So that's
30 years ago. Yeah.
Bucho asked, he'd like to know who the artists that, I guess in your, well, I guess even today, who inspires you? Artists and both in stills, painting, drawing, and animation, live action filmmaking. It's a
Wow.
big one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Classical would be like N.C. Wyeth, Alphonse Mucha, Rockefeller, Rockefeller, Rockwell. Sorry, J.C. Linedecker. Modern would be Greg Hildebrandt, who I got to work with, Drew Struzan, um, and then animation. You know, I don't really know. I don't know if there's I mean there's movies that have really inspired me. I really love the latest Spider-Man.
Oh
And I
yeah.
thought that was, fantastic. Just loved it. I would say I really don't know of any director that, that like, oh, I've got to see everything they do. It hasn't been like that for me. And there's really no studio that's really, I've got to see like, so I would say sorry on that one.
No, it's understandable because in a way, if you think about it, there's a homogenization. If I could use that.
They're corporately
Yeah.
made in a lot of ways, and they have styles. Pixar has a way of storytelling, and
Hmm.
they're wonderful. It's just, I to date I still say Despicable Me 2 was the perfect animated movie. It was funny, it was sweet, it was action, everything just kind of hit. And I just remember that just being such a fantastically funny movie and perfect in every way. And I love movies like The Iron Giant, and I love, like I said, the new Spider-Man and Beauty and the Beast or Little Mermaid. But I for me there was I I'm trying to think of a director, like maybe a Robert Zemeckis, like if there was but I'm like, I've never been one to kind of follow a director. Oh, this director,
Mm.
here's another, this, Steven Spielberg or whatever. Like, I don't like everything from everybody, like there's no one so far who I like everything they do. At least that I know of. Maybe there is, and I just never looked to see who the director
Yeah, and
was.
it's weird how, and it's one of those things where I almost feel like I have to be careful because I don't ever want this to come bite me later. But it's one of those things where in a lot of ways there's a there's a very corporate way of producing movies, and then there's
Yeah.
a outside of Hollywood, I'm going to take some chances and I'm going to do something we're going to try something that's never been done. And
Yeah.
it's when it's kind of like it's such a strange thing, and it always scares me about Hollywood is that somebody does a little small budget movie and it gets the attention of Hollywood. And then they take that director and they say, this person is really visionary and really knows what they're doing. Let's put him in this big budget Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And it's like everything that made them special over here is now being distilled into a okay.
Through marketing
Yeah.
and this and that. Yeah. It's but God bless them. They're getting a chance to do something big
And see, only a few of them get to break through to where, like,
yeah.
for example, I mean, Christopher Nolan's probably the best example. He came in,
Yeah.
he did some smaller budget things. He made a splash. He got to do Batman. It destroyed. And then Warner Brothers was like, okay, you can do whatever you want. And so that's why he's able to do what he's able to do, is because he had to prove himself. And not everybody can do that. I mean,
Yeah, and I do love his stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, his stuff is wonderful. But yeah, it's and I think it's with the Russo brothers. You got to say, Winter Soldier was probably one of the best, if not the best, superhero, show
I
movie
love
ever.
that
But
movie, yeah.
yeah, but yeah,
It's
it is
scary
what
though.
it is.
It's like how can we how I always wonder, like, am I gonna say something that later on down the road they say, hey, but you said that you didn't like? It's like, no, I appreciate what Hollywood does, and I like to talk about the business, but there's also a fear of stifling creativity. Like this right here, that book right there, Story. If you read that book, and it's almost like a lot of screenwriters point to, well, you got to read that. And that is a formulaic, this is how to, like what you had said on a previous interview, again, where you said
the hero's journey.
Not the hero's journey, but the well, you might be wondering, like the flashback.
Oh God, that one, yeah.
That's in that book.
And isn't it? And my kids came home from Sonic and said, "You'll never guess how Sonic started off."
Yeah,
and it was you might be wondering how I got here. We're gonna have to go. Yeah, it is very.
It's.
It is. Look, it's. I hope that streaming, Disney Plus, Apple TV, Netflix, I hope that opens a door for artists to just be artists and just tell stories the way they want to tell it. And like I said, I the good and the bad are the movie that is on Netflix, the version of Animal Crackers, is a director's cut. There's not a single edit in the entire film. We never got to edit the film, so it is every shot that I wrote is in there, for better or for worse. There was a cut where it was 15 minutes shorter, and I think it moved better. But me as the creator missed, learning a little more about Esmeralda and Talia and Bob and all that stuff. But that said, for better or for worse, that's the movie that's there, and I think streaming lets you do that. Netflix didn't have to spend $50 million marketing it. They just put it in there and people can watch it, and they could like it or they could not like it. And I think that is a very liberating way that people can take chances. And so maybe it'll start getting a little less corporate.
Yeah, and people can, I think Netflix has done a really good job of taking some of those chances. Like one of the things that I just love that they did was when they took The Hateful Eight, they split it up like a TV show and expanded the story. Now, does it move as well if you watch it back to back to back to back to back? If you watch it all at once?
Yeah.
No, but it works in a different way because it's almost episodic. And it was
serialized.
It was fun to, it was a fun experiment. Now it's like you said, it's going to be interesting to me to see, well, not only hopefully they call you back and they say, hey, it's a hit and, Sonny, and we want you to, not that they would sound like the 30s or 40s or whatever, but I'm interested to see what you do next and in what medium, or what way you're able to tell your next story, whether it's like, I love the fact that, that you did the basically the online graphic novel, in a way, it's already set up for, like what you said, almost a Patreon type system. And I love that. I think that's smart, and it's utilizing all the different tools to get your work out there, which I love. Just real quick. My dad said that you took a lot of punches and you did get back up. So it's
tell him thank you.
And then of course Albert, he says Winter Soldier is the best MCU movie and the best superhero movie ever. Fist of Bucho, right? It's my friend. Robert Rodriguez is a great example of a guy who's done it his own way over and over again. Soderbergh to some extent, Wes Anderson for sure. And then of course Wes and Robert Rodriguez, both from Texas, by the way. It's because I'm in Dallas, like DFW area, so there's a really thriving independent film sort of renaissance going on, and I guess it's always really been here in Austin, but then it's sort of moved north too, so which is how our movie was made. A lot of people from Austin helped us out, so it was really awesome. But I just, again, I think we're at the end of our interview here, but I just want to say thank you so much for being on here and sharing your story with us, and then sharing your movie with the world. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, and thank you again for caring enough to find out a little bit about me and everything before talking to me. It means a lot.
That's something I love to do. I love to learn about people, and hearing your story was, like I said, it was an inspiration. So I really appreciate that. And guys, we'll be back on Wednesday with our normal news of the week. And thanks again to Scott, and next time. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, everybody.